Every day, hidden far beneath the ocean's surface, there's a special British submarine. Barely anyone on land, if anyone at all, knows where it's located. And it's not allowed to broadcast any signal for fear of being detected. And on that submarine, one of 4 of its kind, there's a letter written by the British Prime Minister. It's locked in a safe, and in this letter contains instructions on what to do in case of nuclear attack. It sounds like the plot to some sort of action movie, but it's real. And in this video, we're uncovering the fascinating history of these submarines as well as these letters, known as the letters of last resort. Last resort because, well, if they're opened, it essentially means that an enemy nuclear attack has destroyed the British government, i.e. the Prime Minister and other decision makers are no longer. In the event that the letter is opened, it means that there's no broadcasts or signals coming out of the UK. And this is really the last chance Britain has to operate any sort of nuclear counterstrike. But before we talk about the letters themselves, let's talk about the submarines. Since 1969, at least one of these submarines, part of the UK's nuclear program, have been patrolling the waters, gliding silently under the ocean's surface. The current submarines, operated by the Royal Navy, are known as nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, or missile if you're British. The current class are the Vanguard class of subs, and there are 4 in total. They're known as Vanguard, Victorious, Vigilant, and Vengeance. They were introduced in 1994, taking over from previous subs, and each are able to hold multiple ballistic missile tubes. They're also fitted with torpedoes in case the target is submerged. Now, Vanguard is the very first boat in this class, and it's the head of it. It measures almost as long as St. Paul's Cathedral and operates at depths of over 250 meters. And fun fact, Vanguard generates its own supply of water and oxygen, meaning it can basically go on as long as it wants to, except eventually they do need to replenish the food for the crew. A Rolls-Royce reactor on board converts water into steam, which provides and generates electricity. Now, there are 2 separate crews of over 100 officers each that man the sub, and they take it in turns. While one crew is on the sub, the other is either training at the base in Scotland or taking leave. And while it's a major responsibility, and that is no understatement, life on the sub can be relatively boring. Your job is to stay silent and have no contact with the outside world, staying at a constant depth and moving very slowly to avoid detection. Now, I say that at least one is always patrolling despite there being 4, as they aren't all on active duty at once. This allows time for some to be taken out for maintenance or refits. But each of these 4 submarines has a safe within a safe that holds a sealed letter, written by the current Prime Minister with instructions on exactly what to do in case of nuclear attack. The commander responsible for the submarine needs to know how to proceed and whether a nuclear counterstrike should be authorized. Again, this is in the absence of being able to get instructions from the British government or Prime Minister at the time, because the assumption is that they're dead. Each of the letters of last resort are handwritten, and they're done at the time of the new Prime Minister taking power. It doesn't mean they do it before they put the toaster down at 10 Downing Street, but it does come relatively soon after. Previous prime ministers have said that this really makes it hit home the importance of the position and the fact that it's no longer campaigning or politics, but real lives and the real world at stake. They do get a briefing from Britain's military officers on how things operate, including the potential consequences of authorizing a strike. The warheads on board have the potential to kill millions of people and to destroy multiple cities. So again, this is a huge responsibility and not something to take lightly. What the Prime Minister writes in these letters is not revealed. Even after they no longer hold office, the letter is destroyed without being read. You don't want the enemy knowing what might happen or make any inferences, so it's all kept very classified. But there are only so many options that can happen, and it's believed there's kind of one of 4 options that a prime minister might take. Number 1, retaliate. Number 2, do nothing. Number 3, join forces with an allied nation like the US or Australia. Number 4, allow the commander-in-chief at sea to make the decision themselves. Ex-Prime Minister Tony Blair is said to have gone a bit white when first confronted with the idea that he would have to make this decision and write this letter, and ex-Prime Ministers Gordon Brown and John Major have both said that they would have instructed not to kill civilians in a nuclear counterstrike. But again, it's all pretty much shrouded in secrecy, so we'll never truly know. They don't send these letters via Royal Mail either. Can you imagine what would happen if they got lost? They are hand delivered. And if you're wondering what happens before it can be hand delivered when a new prime minister comes into power, the letters on board from the old prime minister would remain the official instructions until such a time that they can be replaced. So there is never a time when there is a gap in these instructions. And how does the commander at sea know whether the whole world has fallen apart and it's time to open the letters? There are many fail-safes and ways they use to monitor the UK, including monitoring Radio 4, which would be the official wartime broadcast, as well as attempting to make contact with really any British government, but particularly British Naval Command. They're not going to open these safes or these letters without being absolutely sure that something very terrible has gone on. There is one problem though. The Vanguard series of submarines are wearing out. They're requiring more work with more aging parts as they've gone beyond their official planned duty of 25 years of service, having come into effect in the early 1990s. I also came into effect in the early 1990s and my joints are starting to hurt a little bit more, so I can't imagine what Vanguard submarines are feeling. It's requiring longer stints for the crews and it's time for a new series of subs, but there is a plan in place. The new subs will be the Dreadnought subs, and these were started in 2016, being built in Cumbria. The other world-changing events of 2020 slowed down the building process some, but the work continues and they'll become the UK's largest ever submarine in service. The aim is to have them take over in the 2030s, so there's still a ways to go. But when they do take over from Vanguard submarines, they are going to have technological advances that are going to make these subs stealthier at higher speeds, as well as just more efficient in general. Think of how much technology has come on in the last 30 years. Now, the letters of last resort will remain a tried and true British system as far as we're aware, despite the new submarines. It's a chilling thought, really, to think about the preparations that are always being made outside of civilian view for nuclear apocalypse. But the next time you're on your summer holidays and frolicking in the water, take a moment and know you're sharing the ocean with nuclear missiles. They're there to protect you, of course, to act as a deterrent to the enemy, whoever the enemy is at the time, but then if the UK has them, who's to say what other countries, including those with nefarious intentions, also have them too? And that's a lot of food for thought for one day, so thanks very much for watching this video, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.